Coach Bragger's ship broke through the morning clouds above Texas like a silver arrow. People in the small town of Riverbend watched, mouths open, as the vessel slowed, folded its shining wings, and settled on the high school football field. The grass shimmered beneath strange blue thrusters, but nothing burned. The Zorvex engineers were proud of their tidy landings. Camera drones buzzed over the bleachers. Reporters cheered into microphones. Today was the first stop on the intergalactic fitness exchange, and everyone knew it might change sports history. Mayor Ruiz, a round woman with lively eyes, hurried forward with a welcome banner. She waved at the cargo ramp, hoping for a warm greeting. Instead, a tall, coral-skinned figure marched out, back straight, chin up. His muscles pressed against a green uniform covered in gold stars. Two slender aides followed, carrying tablets and glossy training spheres. This was Coach Bragger, legend of the Zorvex combat leagues. He had once wrestled a steel-clawed Varg beast underwater, and won. He had finished a 10-mile sprint on a planet where gravity felt twice as heavy as Earth's, everywhere he went. He bragged, hence the fitting name he chose when he studied English. Humans, he was sure, would appreciate confidence. Surveyed the field, as if inspecting a child's drawing. Basic, he muttered, but we can work with basic. A microphone drifted near his face. He fixed his bright yellow eyes on the lens. People of Earth, he announced. Your athletes are welcome to train beside the Zorvex. Watch. Learn. One day you may hope to rise to our warm-up level. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Half loved the swagger, half felt insulted. In the back row, Henry Hank Walters lifted a brow. His silver hair stuck out beneath a faded baseball cap. He held a metal kanat because he truly needed it, but because it politely reminded his knees to behave. Hank had earned 2 Purple Hearts long ago, served as an Olympic boxing coach later, and now spent mornings walking his dog and evenings. Cheering his grandson at school track meets, Hank's grandson Eli stood near the podium with the official Earth delegation. He was 17, tall and lean, with a quick laugh. He tugged nervously at his blue team jacket, side braggers. Sparkly outfit, he felt underdressed. Bragger stepped closer to the podium, turned, and faced the bleachers again. Our first demonstration begins at noon. My elite squad will perform strength drills. Select your own champions to join. I promise a fair comparison, though the result is obvious. He flashed a toothy grin the color of polished ivory. Someone shouted, "Let's see you try football." Another yelled, "We'll take you in wrestling." A third, "Don't underestimate humans." The coach raised a hand, amused. Then his gaze landed on Hank. Perhaps it was the relaxed posture, the calm eyes, or the quiet confidence invisible to most. Bragger's smile widened. He pointed at the older man. "You," he called, voice booming through hidden speakers. "You an athlete here?" The bleachers turned as one. Hank looked left, looked right, then chuckled. "Me, I'm just a grandpa watching the show." Bragger pretended to think, tapping his chin. "Grandpa. Yes." He paced theatrically. "No, on my world we have a saying, even blindfolded. The Zorvex coach could outperform the local elders." He spread his arms. "Shall we test that saying today?" Laughter spurted from the alien aides. Some humans laughed too, unsure if the old man felt offended or entertained. Eli's cheeks reddened. He stepped forward. "Coach," he said politely with respect, "that grandpa is my grandfather. And he has done more push-ups in his life than most of us have taken breaths. Maybe pick someone your own age?" The crowd oohed. Cameras zoomed in on Eli's earnest face, then on Hank, then back to Bragger. The alien coach tilted his head, amused by the grandson's courage. "How touching," he said. "Very well, I retract nothing. At noon we begin. If Grandpa wishes to join my first drill, he may. I will even blindfold myself, as tradition demands." "Coach," one aide whispered, worried about public relations. Bragger waved him off. Hank slowly rose, leaned on his cane, but his eyes shone. "Young man," he called, voice carrying farther than expected. "I've seen many hotheads burn themselves out in half the race. If you're sure about this, challenge. I'll happily stretch my legs." The bleachers exploded, half cheering Hank, half roaring at Bragger's bravado. Reporters dashed for quotes. A trending headline formed in seconds: Alien Coach V's Earth Grant High Noon Showdown. Eli hurried up the steps and took Hank's arm. "Grandpa, you don't have to do this," he whispered. "You said your shoulder still aches in cold weather." Hank winked. "Good thing it's warm today. Besides, I'm curious." His voice softened. Life teaches best when we face the unexpected. Down on the field, technicians rolled out alien equipment, translucent weight orbs that pulsed with internal gravity, balance plates that floated a foot above ground, and a long, glimmering track lined with markers that changed color to count. Speed. Bragger ran one fingertip along the rail. "This will be pleasant," he murmured. Inside the school gym, the Earth team gathered. Coach Daniels, a former Marine sergeant, looked Hank over. "Sir, I respect your history, but that alien is the size of a truck and half your age. You sure?" Hank rotated an elbow. "Pop, age is a measure of time, not talent," he replied. "I don't need to lift more weight than him. Just need to show him weight isn't everything." Eli fetched a bottle of water. "Let me at least help you warm up." He settled into gentle stretches. Hank favored simple motions arm. Circles, toe touches, slow breathing. No fancy machines, no protein shakes, no holographic coaching apps. His eyes stayed on the window facing the field, watching Bragger strut. Outside, children from Riverbend Elementary lined the fence, waving. Homemade signs, "Go Grandpa, Earth's Pride." I show them. Their teachers tried to keep them settled, but excitement bounced like popcorn. Mayor Ruiz rechecked the safety waivers, then approached Hank. "Sir, if at any point you choose to withdraw, we'll understand fully." Hank smiled kindly. "Mayor, I once climbed a mountain taller than this stadium because my squad needed a signal beacon placed, not quitting a friendly exhibition." The mayor exhaled, half relieved, half terrified. 10 minutes before noon, solar shields unfolded above the bleachers, blocking harsh light and making a perfect stage. A gentle, computer-generated bell chimed. Bragger stepped to the starting mat in front of the crowd. One aide produced a long black cloth. The coach tied it over his own glowing eyes. "Blindfold secured," he declared. Emerged from the tunnel in plain sneakers, khaki shorts, and an old t-shirt that read "World's Best Granddad." The audience burst into heartfelt laughter and applause. He waved, nodded to Bragger, and took his spot on the neighboring mat. A hush fell. The announcer's voice echoed. "First challenge, 30-second gravity orb deadlift. Competitors must lift continuously. Total weight displaced decides the winner." Bragger flexed, inhaled, and cracked his knuckles so loud the microphone caught it. Hank simply rolled his shoulders once more and wrapped both hands around the cool, glassy sphere set before him. It felt alive, humming softly. Eli stood at the sidelines, heart hammering. Cameras counted down. 3, 1. A tone sounded, and part 1 ended with both rivals lifting, one trusting raw power, the other trusting quiet wisdom, while the whole world leaned forward in suspense, waiting to see if an Earth grandpa could humble a galactic titan, ask ChatGPT. The air buzzed with excitement. The bleachers shook as the crowd cheered louder. Children waved their homemade signs. Reporters shouted into microphones. Camera drones hovered above, capturing every angle of the strange match. On the field, the first event, the gravity orb deadlift, had just ended. Coach Bragger stood tall, pulling off his blindfold. His face was smug, confident. He rolled his shoulders and cracked his neck like a warrior who had just crushed his enemy. "It was too easy," he declared. He turned toward the judges' table, waiting for the final numbers. "I expect nothing less than victory," he added with a proud smirk. But then the screen flashed. Hank Walters 930. "Gravity units, Coach Bragger, minus 920 gravity units," the crowd gasped. The alien aides looked at the numbers, blinked, then looked again. Bragger's smile vanished. "What? That's impossible. Your machine is broken," he barked. The Earth technician calmly shook his head. All systems working. Gravity count verified. Mr. Walters wins this round. Coach Bragger stared at Hank in disbelief. You cheated, he said coldly. Hank simply wiped his hands with a towel and took a sip of water. I've never cheated in my life, he said. I just breathe, lift, and stay steady. Bragger's eyes narrowed. This isn't over. From the sidelines, Eli nearly jumped in joy. That was incredible, Grandpa. Hank chuckled.
Wasn't.
Bad for someone with a sore knee and a bad hip, huh? The media went wild. Headlines started spreading instantly. Grandpa beats alien supercoach in round 1. Earth's secret weapon. An old man with patience. Zorvek's pride shaken by human elder. The second event was about to begin, the balanced sphere test. The challenge was simple. Stand on a floating platform that shifted every few seconds. Whoever stayed on the longest without falling off would win. Bragger was furious now, but he kept his posture strong. He leaped onto his sphere, which floated 6 feet above the ground, spread his arms and glared at Hank. Hank, on the other hand, walked slowly to his platform. He stepped on with care, took a deep breath, and stood still like a tree in the wind. The timer started. The platforms wobbled, spun, and tilted. Bragger crouched low and tensed his legs, gritted his teeth, muscles shaking. Hank, however, stood relaxed. His arms hung calmly. He moved slightly with each tilt, flowing like a leaf on water. After 2 minutes, Bragger lost his balance and toppled off his platform. He landed with a loud thud. The crowd gasped. Hank was still standing. 1 minute later, the buzzer sounded. Result? Hank Walters wins round 2, balance test this time. Bragger didn't speak. His face was red with embarrassment. He stomped. Off the field, ignoring questions and cameras. Back in the Earth team's tent, Coach Daniels gave Hank a proud nod. I've seen Marines fall off those balance spheres in 15 seconds. What's your secret? Hank smiled. I've been a fisherman, a mountain climber, and once crossed a rope bridge during a storm. Balance is about trust. Trust in your body, trust in the moment. Eli grinned. You're making humans look like legends, not trying to make anyone look like anything, Hank said. I just want that alien to stop thinking we're weak. Later that day, Bragger held a private meeting with his alien team. He paced in anger. How is this old man beating me? His body is aged. His reflexes are slow. One aide spoke softly. Maybe Earth's strength is not in power, but in control. Out, Bragger shouted! Nonsense. The next round will prove what real strength is. The third event was a sprint test across a floating track that shifted mid-run. It wasn't just about speed. It was about reading the changes in the track and adapting. Fast, Bragger was determined to crush this one. Hank looked over at Eli and said, This one's yours. I'll watch this round. Eli blinked. You sure? Hank nodded. Your legs are stronger. This is your time. Bragger saw the switch and smirked. Ah, now they bring in the young one. Perhaps some common sense at last. The whistle blew. Eli dashed forward, ran like wind, staying light on his feet. The track shifted left, then right, raised a slope, then dropped. Braggart followed close behind, but pushed too hard. When the track shifted again, he stumbled slightly, just enough to lose half a second. Eli crossed the finish line first. Eli Walters' human team, the stadium roared. Earth was now ahead 3-0. Bragger sat down, sweat pouring from his forehead. His heart pounded. What is happening? He muttered. How can they be beating me? That night, the town threw a small celebration at the local park. There was music, food, and laughter. People danced. Children took pictures with Hank and Eli. Aliens watched from a distance, curious and confused. Hank sat under a tree with Eli beside him. Did you plan this? Eli asked. No, Hank replied. I just listened. That coach talks too much. But he doesn't observe, doesn't learn. Eli looked at the stars. Do you think he'll change? Maybe, Hank said, sipping lemonade. If he loses with grace. Back at the alien ship, Bragger stood in front of a mirror. He looked at himself, not the muscles, not the medals, but his eyes. Eyes that had seen victory too many times, had forgotten humility. He clenched his fist. Tomorrow, I'll remind them who I am. But deep inside, a strange feeling grew. Not fear, but respect. The next morning, the sun rose gently over Riverbend. A dew sparkled on the grass. Birds chirped like nothing unusual had happened, but in the town, people were buzzing with excitement. Everyone talked about the human grandpa who was out shining, a galactic coach. News crews camped outside the local gym. Fans waved signs like, "Go Grandpa! Earth strong. And we believe in Hank." Even schools gave a half-day off just so students could watch the next events live. Inside the community center, Hank Walters arrived early. He wore his usual clothes, plain sneakers, loose shorts, and a t-shirt with the words "Old but Gold." His hair was still silver, his cane still by his side. But there was something in his walk today, a quiet fire. Coach Daniels greeted him with a grin. "Ready for day 2, champ?" Hank smiled. "Always ready. I had a good night's sleep, and my joints aren't screaming yet. That's a win already." Meanwhile, across town, Coach Braggart stood inside his ship's advanced training bay. He wasn't smiling. His arms were crossed and his mood was sharp. Round him alien athletes, trained in floating chambers, lifted glowing weights, and practiced. Combat simulations at twice the speed of humans. Braggart barked orders. "No breaks today. We must sharpen every skill. No human, especially not an elderly one, should be able to beat a Zorvex champion again." His aides nodded nervously. One whispered, "Coach, perhaps you should try to understand how they train. The humans use a different style." Braggart waved him off. "Their style is outdated, weak, full of rest and low-tech nonsense. Even." As he said it, Braggart couldn't forget the image of Hank calmly standing on that shifting platform, balanced like a statue while he himself fell. It haunted him. Back at the Earth gym, Hank walked to the small weight room with Eli, his grandson. The equipment wasn't Newsome of the machines squeaked. The dumbbells had scratches. But Hank loved it here. He picked up a medicine ball and began his warm-up. Not with fancy moves. Just simple, steady throws against the wall. Catch. Throw, catch, breathe. Repeat. Eli watched, puzzled. "Grandpa, you're not even sweating." "I'm not here to impress, kid," Hank said. "I'm here to prepare. Training isn't about breaking your body, it's about knowing it." Eli nodded slowly. "That's different from what Coach Daniels makes us do." "Exactly," Hank said. "That alien coach, you can see it. In his eyes, he's forcing power. But real strength comes when the body and mind are in balance." Later that day, the 4th event was announced. Obstacle Puzzle Combat. It was a mix of mental and physical tasks. Competitors would run through a shifting maze, face surprise, logic puzzles, and deal with moving obstacles. Each wrong answer would cost time. Each hit would add penalties. Victory required both brain and body. Hank and Braggart stood at the starting gate. This time, Braggart didn't boast. He only nodded. Quiet, focused. "May the best man win," Hank said kindly. "I intend to," Braggart replied, but his voice was softer than before. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Go. They both dashed into the maze. Inside, glowing. Arrows shifted. Lasers popped out and retreated. Puzzle screens asked riddles like, "I have no eyes, but I see. I have no ears, but I hear. What am I?" Braggart blinked, confused. "A drone?"
Ow.
The screen buzzed. "Wrong. 5-second penalty." Hank stopped, grinned slightly, and said, "An echo."
How the screen blinked green.
He moved on. The next challenge was a spinning tunnel with rising platforms. Braggart charged forward, leaping from platform to platform, nearly slipping twice. He made it but wasted energy. Hank paused, watched the rhythm, then stepped carefully, almost dancing through it. Then came the final test. A wall climb with a code lock at the top. The code was hidden in a riddle from earlier. Braggart reached. At first, but froze. He didn't remember the number. Was it 321? He guessed wrong. Siren Hank reached the top seconds later. typed in 109 without blinking, and pulled the lever. BZZZZZT. Winner. Hank Walters' obstacle puzzle combat. The stadium shook with applause. Even the alien spectators were clapping. Now, some Zorvek soldiers whispered to each other, impressed. Bragger stepped down, face unreadable. He didn't stomp. He didn't yell. He just nodded at Hank. "You are skilled," he admitted. "Thank you," Hank replied. "So are you. But skill needs patience. You fight like a storm. Sometimes a river wins where a storm fails." Bragger didn't reply, but something changed in his eyes. The pride was still there, but now it had room for respect. That evening, Bragger surprised everyone by visiting the Earth training tent. He watched silently as Eli did sit-ups and Coach Daniels gave feedback. Then, without warning, he asked, "May I train with you tomorrow?" Coach Daniels blinked. "Train with us?" Bragger nodded. "I want to understand your methods, not just beat them," Hank chuckled from the bench. "Now that is a wise move." Later that night, as the stars filled the sky, Eli and Hank walked home. "Grandpa," Eli asked, "do you think you're going to win all the events?" Hank smiled. "Winning isn't always the goal. Sometimes showing what we're made of is more important, and maybe helping others see things differently." Eli looked at him with pride. "You've already done that?" From above, the alien ship shined like a quiet moon, its light soft, no longer proud and loud. Something had changed. The stadium was full again. It was the final day of the Intergalactic Fitness Exchange. The crowd was bigger than ever. Reporters from across the world and other planets had gathered. Flags of Earth waved beside the glowing banners of the Zorvex Empire. Everyone waited for the event they had all come to see, the grand exhibition match. On one side of the field stood Coach Bragger, tall and silent, dressed in a sharp black and gold training suit. On the other stood Hank Walters, wearing simple gray sportswear and his old sneakers. No armor, no fancy gear. Just calm confidence. A drone flew above the stadium and announced in many languages, "Today's final event will test strategy, strength, and honor." No machines, no puzzles, just two champions. One human. One Zorvex. Let the match begin. Bragger stepped forward. He'd been quiet all morning, thinking deeply. Something inside him had shifted after the last challenge. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about understanding. Double quotes. "Mr. Walters," Bragger said respectfully, "win or lose. I thank you for reminding me why I became a coach." Hank smiled. "Sometimes we forget who we are until we meet someone who shows us." The crowd went quiet. A bell rang. The match began. The field was marked with colored zones. Each zone had a different trial, one for strength, one for speed, one for timing, and one final zone for a light sparring duel. The two would move from zone to zone, earning points. No tricks, no violence, just fair competition. First zone, strength. Both men had to lift a solid weight block over a high bar 5 times. Bragger went first. His movements were smooth and powerful. He grunted with focus and finished fast. Hank stepped up next. He took his time. Lift, breathe, balance. Lift again, in the end. Bragger was faster, but Hank had better form and used less energy. Result: tie 1 point each. Second zone, speed. It was a short dash with a twist. Moving barriers would try to slow them down. Bragger exploded forward, dodging and ducking. He clipped one barrier, but reached the line in great time. Hank moved, with rhythm, not speed. He waited for each gap, then stepped through cleanly. He was slower, but didn't touch any obstacles. Result: Bragger wins 2 points to 1. Third zone, timing. Out. Targets popped up in random order. They had to strike them with soft foam sticks, not miss any, and not swing too early. Bragger hit fast, but missed 2 targets. Hank waited, eyes sharp. He struck only when needed. Calm, focused. Perfect score. Result: Hank wins, now tied. 2 points each. Final zone. Sparring. They entered a round mat, so it'd be a friendly duel, no real harm. Light gloves, no hits to the head.
A goal
Was to score points through movement, balance, and light taps. Braggart took a deep breath. He knew he was stronger. But now he also knew that strength wasn't everything. Hank bowed slightly. "Let's dance," he said. The duel began. Braggart lunged forward, controlled, not wild. Hank stepped sideways, barely touching the edge of Braggart's arm. Tap, 1 point. Braggart spun and tapped Hank's side. Tap, 1 point. Then the real test began. Back and forth they moved, like two waves meeting and parting. The crowd watched, in silence, amazed at how both fighters respected the other. No trash talk, no anger, just skill. Then, with 10 seconds left, Braggart aimed a strong forward move. Hank stepped aside, hooked a foot gently behind Braggart's ankle, and shifted his balance. Braggart stumbled, didn't fall, but had to catch himself. Tap, 1 more. Point for Hank. The bell rang. Final result? Hank Walters, 2-3 points, Coach Braggart, -2 points, winner of the exhibition match. Ertz, Hank Walters for a moment. There was only silence. Then the stadium roared with cheers. Children jumped. Porters clapped. Even many of the Zorvex athletes applauded. Braggart stood still. Then he stepped forward, raised Hank's hand, and said loudly, "You are a true warrior. I am proud." "To have faced you?" Hank replied. "You didn't lose, just found something more important than victory." After the match, Braggart spoke at the closing ceremony. "The Zorvex came here to show power, but we leave with something greater: wisdom, patience, and the heart of humanity. From this day forward, we will invite Earth trainers to help shape our future athletes." The Earth crowd cheered. Eli hugged his grandfather tightly. "You did it, Grandpa." Hank smiled. "We did it. You helped me train. You believed in me." Eli looked up. "You think the galaxy respects us now?" "They don't just respect us," Hank said. "They see us." Later that evening, as the alien ship lifted off, people waved from rooftops and parks. The ship blinked its lights in a pattern of respectful farewell. Inside the ship, Braggart sat quietly in the training chamber. He looked at a simple paper. Photo someone had given him, a picture of Hank standing with Eli, both smiling, holding a small sign that read, "Strength with Honor." Braggart placed the photo near the captain's console and whispered, "May I grow wiser with every match." Back in Riverbend, Hank sat on the porch with Eli and watched the stars. "You think they'll come back someday?" Eli asked. "Maybe," Hank said, "and next time, maybe you'll be the one standing in the ring." Eli grinned. "Only if you coach me." Hank chuckled. "Deal." The stars twinkled above, brighter than usual. Maybe because tonight Earth had earned its place. Among them, not through weapons or technology, but through the quiet strength of one humble grandpa. It had been 2 days since the exhibition match. The news had spread across Earth and even into space. Articles and videos titled "Grandpa Beats Alien Coach" were everywhere. Hank Walters had become a quiet hero, though he still preferred his evening tea and a walk with his dog, but the event wasn't quite over. Coach Braggart had made a surprise request. One final test, not a contest, not a match. Something deeper. "Let's train together," Braggart said. "I want to understand how Earth trains the body and mind, and I want to know how you became what you are." Hank had simply smiled and said, "Meet me at sunrise." At dawn, Braggart arrived at the edge of Riverbend Park. No machines, no stadium, no camera drones, just trees, birds, and cool wind. Wore a simple tracksuit, trying to blend in. Hank was already there, sitting on a wooden bench, tying his shoes. "Ready to learn?" Hank asked. Braggart nodded. "I brought my data pad for tracking strength." "Leave it," Hank said. "Today's about something else." Braggart blinked. "What are we doing?" "Old school human training," Hank said with a grin. "Kind that doesn't make you sweat first, it makes you think." First activity, the quiet walk. They walked along a forest trail. No talking, just breathing, listening, and feeling their steps. At first, Bragger was confused. "What's the purpose of this?" he asked. "Just wait," Hank said. 10 minutes later, the alien coach started to notice things. The chirping birds, the crunch of leaves underfoot, his breath, his heartbeat. He was more aware, more focused than he had felt in a long time. At the end of the trail, Hank said, "A strong body means nothing if the mind is scattered. First, calm the storm inside." Bragger nodded slowly. "Interesting." Second activity, the weight of stories. Back at Hank's house, they sat in the garage, which was part workshop and part gym. Old tools hung on walls. Trophies stood dusty. In corners, photos covered the shelves, pictures of Hank's wife, his younger days in the military, and a much younger Eli standing with a trophy. Grinning proudly, Hank handed Bragger a small rusted medal. "I got this 50 years ago," he said. "Not for lifting weights, not for fighting, for carrying a wounded friend 5 miles during a storm when no one thought we'd survive." Bragger stared at it. "You carried a man 5 miles?" "Yes," Hank said. "But the medal didn't matter. The story did. The reason I did it. That's the weight we train for." Bragger looked around the room. "We have medals too, but not like this. Because strength isn't in muscle," Hank said. "It's in meaning." Third activity, teaching the young. Later, they visited the local high school gym. Eli and a few students were training. Nothing intense, just basic stretching, team warm-ups, and short runs. Hank called Eli over. "Show the coach our warm-up." Routine. Eli led the group. "All right, team. High knees. Jump jacks. Then we do the relay jog." Bragger watched carefully. "Why start so slow?" he asked. "Because this is about building a team, not showing off," Eli explained. "We go too hard too fast. We leave people behind." Bragger was quiet. He had never thought of it that way. On Zorvek's, weakness was left behind. Here it was lifted up. Later, as the students finished, one small boy tripped and fell. Eli helped him up. "You okay?" "I'm fine," the boy said. "I just want to be like your grandpa one day." Bragger watched in silence. Fourth activity, the memory wall, at sunset. Hank brought Bragger to the local Veterans Memorial. A large stone wall had names engraved, men and women who had served and sacrificed. Flags flew gently in the breeze. Hank stood in front of a name. He touched it softly. "My brother," he said, "didn't make it back. But he was braver than me." Bragger looked at the wall. "So many names. Each one tells a story," Hank said. "Of courage, of duty, of love." Bragger swallowed hard. "We don't have walls like this on my world. We have statues of winners, not of the fallen." "Then maybe that's what's missing," Hank said. "Respect for the quiet heroes." At the end of the day, Bragger sat on the same porch Hank always used to watch the stars. Eli brought out lemonade for both of them. "I never thought Earth had so much to teach," Bragger admitted. "You've defeated me not with fists, but with wisdom." Hank sipped his drink. "You weren't defeated, you just learned. That's the best kind of victory." He smiled. "So what was Grandpa's secret weapon?" Braggart looked at Hank and answered for him. "Humility. That's his secret weapon. And it's more powerful than any tech I've seen." That night, Bragger spoke to his team aboard the ship. "From now on," he said, "we will train differently. We will walk before we run. We will listen before we speak. We will respect even the smallest effort. Because Earth taught me something I never expected. Real strength is not loud. It's quiet, steady, and full of purpose." Time, his entire squad stood and applauded. Back in Riverbend, Hank looked up at the stars with Eli again. "You think Bragger will come back?" Eli asked. "I hope so," Hank said. "Not to fight, but to share." "Maybe you'll start a training school one day," Eli teased. Hank laughed. "Only if I get to sleep in on Sundays." The two laughed as the stars sparkled above. World had changed, and it all began with a challenge, a quiet smile, and the strength of one old man who never needed to prove anything, but still did. The sun was setting in Riverbend. Orange and pink light painted the sky. Birds flew across the clouds. It was peaceful, just like it had been before the alien ship arrived. But now, the town was different, and so was the galaxy. 3 days after the final challenge, the Zorvex ship prepared to leave. Its large wings spread slowly above the school's stadium, humming softly with energy. Thousands of people gathered again, not for a match but to say goodbye. On the main platform stood Coach Bragger, no longer in his flashy gold uniform. Today he wore a simple white tunic, much like the clothes Earth trainers wore. His face was calm, his voice steady. He spoke into the translator device so that all species, human or alien, could understand him. "People of Earth," he said, "we came to teach, but we leave having learned more than we expected. Strength in numbers, in power, in speed. Instead, we found strength in patience, kindness, and wisdom." The crowd clapped softly. It was not loud like before, but deep, honest, and full of respect. "I once mocked your elder," Bragger continued. "I believed a grandpa could not compete with someone like me.
I was wrong."
He turned toward Hank Walters, who stood nearby, hands in his pockets, his grandson Eli by his side. "This man," Bragger said, "showed me that age is not weakness. That training is not only for the body, but for the soul. And that true champions never stop learning." The crowd clapped louder now. Bragger raised his arm and pointed to the sky. "My people will return not to challenge you, but to train beside you, together. Because Earth has something rare. Not just muscle, not just mind, but heart." After the speech, Braggart stepped off the stage and walked straight to Hank. "I was hoping you'd come," Hank said. "I had to," Braggart replied. "I wanted to thank you for everything." Hank nodded. "You're welcome, Coach. You've changed." "Think I understand now," Braggart said. "It's not about winning every fight. It's about why we fight in the first place." "Exactly," Hank said, smiling. "Took you a few bruises, but you got there." Bragger laughed a deep, honest laugh that surprised even his own team. "I brought something for you," Bragger added. He handed Hank a small cube. When Hank pressed it, it opened like a flower. Inside was a glowing metal, shaped like a star. "This is our highest honor," Bragger explained. "We give it only to those who change the way we think." Hank looked at it, then quietly closed the box and handed it back. "I don't need medals," he said. "Give it to someone who's still finding their strength. Maybe that small alien. Boy who helped fix your drone last night?" Bragger's eyes widened, then softened. "You really are one of a kind." Later that evening, the town of Riverbend held one last gathering in the park. This time, it wasn't just for celebration, it was to share what had been learned. A large circle formed, humans and aliens sitting side by side. No stage, no rankings, it's just stories. A farmer stood up and shared how his father taught him to fix a tractor with nothing but rope and patience. A young Zorvex pilot shared how she had always believed Earth was weak until she saw a group of schoolchildren build a rocket model using empty soda bottles. A grandmother told a story about teaching her grandson how to make bread, and how much stronger that bond was than any sport. Then Eli stood up and said, "My grandpa didn't win because he was stronger. He won because he knew who he was. That's the lesson I'll take forever." Everyone clapped. Hank gave Eli a proud nod. The next morning, the Zorvex ship finally lifted off. As it rose into the sky, it did something unexpected. It left behind a gift. In the center of Riverbend Stadium, a polished metal plaque stood, placed where the sparring ring had been. On it, simple words were written in both Earth English and the Zorvex language. "Let the strong learn from the wise, the fast learn from the patient. Let all learn from each other." In honor of Hank Walters, Earth's teacher years later, people still talked about that week. Children in schools studied the Riverbend Exchange in history class. A new training program began shared between Earth and Zorvex called Strength with Heart Coach. Daniels wrote a book titled Training the Hank Way, which became a bestseller on Earth and 2 moons of Zorvex. Braggart became a quiet leader in his home world, no longer shouting, no longer boasting. Instead, he listened more than he spoke. He often told his students, "Remember the grandpa from Earth, and remember, if you ever think you're too strong to learn, you're wrong." And Hank, He returned to his quiet life, mornings with his dog, tea at sunset, helping Eli with college applications, sometimes giving small talks at schools, but always staying humble. One evening, while walking with Eli by the riverside, Eli asked, "Do you miss the attention?" "No," Hank said. "I've had my moment. What matters now is what you do." Next, Eli looked up at the stars. "Do you think other alien coaches will challenge Earth someday?" Hank smiled. "Maybe let them come. Just make sure you show them the right kind of strength." Eli nodded. "I will." As they walked home, the wind was gentle, and the sky was full of stars. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear sneakers, carry a cane, and tell quiet stories that echo through galaxies. And sometimes they're grandpas.